We do.
These are,
It's actually great.
yeah. Yeah, I bet.
Let's do. The last meeting. Charlie Baker.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Are we ready to go?
Can you say something one more time?
Yeah, are we all ready to go?
I think we are.
Yes, go ahead, JC.
Okay. Okay, the meeting of the Iowa State University Presidential Search Committee is now in session. I will begin by calling roll, and I apologize if I mispronounce some names, as this is the first time I'm meeting some of you. But Megan Gillette,
Present.
okay, thank you, Megan. Greta Rouse,
Present.
Robert Kramer,
Present.
Kurt Jaden,
Present.
Colby Brandt,
Present.
Muhammad Azan,
Present.
Jennifer Schrader,
It's Schroeder, present.
Schroeder, okay, thank you. Tim Day,
Here, present.
Patrick Schnabel,
Schnabel, here.
thank you. Kara Hayden,
Present.
Roger Underwood,
Present.
JC Reiswick is present also. We have a quorum and the meeting can proceed. At this time, let's go around the table and we'll have everyone introduce themselves and their position. I'll start with myself and then I'll pass it to Megan. My name is JC Reiswick. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. Happy to be a co-chair of this search committee. It's a humbling thing to be a part of. Happy to do Megan of the Board of Regents.
Hi, I'm Megan Gillette. I'm a teaching professor in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies. And I'm also the,
Sure.
okay. I'm Megan Gillette. Can you hear me, JC? Yeah, okay. I'm Megan Gillette. I'm a teaching professor in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies. I'm also the president of the Iowa State University Faculty Senate and co-chair of this committee. Thank you all for being here.
Mark Brown, Executive Director for the Board of Regents.
Kurt Jaden, Board of Regents.
Greta Rouse, a regent from Emmitsburg, also serve as pro tem of the board.
Robert Kramer from Adel and on the Board of Regents.
Kara Hayden in Des Moines, Iowa, graduate of Iowa State in 1978 and on the Dean's Advisory Council of the College of Business since 1994, long time. Good morning, everybody.
I'm Tim Day. I'm a professor in biomedical sciences out of the vet school and also serve half-time as faculty advisor to President Winterstein and as the faculty athletics representative for Iowa State University.
Roger Underwood, a 1980 graduate from Iowa State in agriculture, and I'm an ag investor and ag businessman. Live here in the Rural Ames.
Jennifer Schroeder, I am a team supervisor for finance service delivery supporting the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and I am currently president of Professional and Scientific Council.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Azan, the president of the Graduate and Professional Student Senate at Iowa State University, and a PhD candidate in chemistry.
I'm Pat Schnabel. I direct the Plant Sciences Institute. I'm a professor in the Department of Agronomy, entrepreneur, and ISU grad.
And here providing staff support. Stephanie Griffin, paralegal at the board office. Amy Clays, general counsel for the Board of Regents. I will be providing legal support to the search. and then on Zoom.
Sherry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Sherry Bates, President of the Board from Scranton, Iowa, and an Iowa State alum.
Uh,
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Colby Brandt. I'm a rising junior majoring in agriculture and rural policy studies, and I am the student body president.
like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Rod McDavis. I'm the managing principal and CEO of AGB Search.
Janice?
Good morning. I'm Janice Fitzgerald, and I am an executive search consultant with AGB Search.
Jim?
We might need to introduce for Jim, Rod.
Yeah, Jim McCormick is the third member of our team. Jim McCormick is a senior executive search consultant with AGB Search.
Okay. The Board of Regents has hired AGB Search to assist with the selection of the next ISU president. At this time, let me introduce AGB Managing Partner Rod McDavis, who will discuss the role of AGB in assisting the search committee.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and to our two co-chairs and to the president of the Board of Regents, to the committee and the staff. We are delighted to be serving as your partners in this most important search for the next president of Iowa State University. Jim McCormick and Janice Fitzgerald had the honor of serving as the consultants for the last search for the president of Iowa State University, and I'm delighted to join them with this search for the president of Iowa State University. We are excited about the opportunity. Our role is to be your partner. Our role is to assist you in any way possible so that we can have a successful outcome to the search. We will work with the search committee very closely. And in that regard, we will work with the two co-chairs very closely. We will work with the staff very closely to make sure that the trains run on time. So on the bureaucratic side, our hope is to have a smooth operation from the standpoint of making sure that all the committee meetings are run as efficiently and effectively as possible, but also to make sure that all of the bureaucratic work is done in an efficient and effective manner. From the listening sessions to the end of the process, we will be with you every step of the way. We will be working very closely on the front end of the search to facilitate and to work with the listening sessions, most of which have already been planned, and you'll hear more about that during the course of the meeting. Then to the development of the leadership profile and to its approval, and then to the recruitment of what we think will be outstanding candidates for this search. And then ultimately through the process of the interview for the semifinalists and finalists, and certainly to do all of the due diligence work that is required for a search of this stature. And then certainly toward the end of the search, we will work very closely with the board on any logistics that are necessary to make sure that the finalists are interviewed appropriately and to a successful conclusion of the search. My colleagues and I will be ready to assist in whatever way we can all throughout the process. We will be available not only to the co-chairs, but to the committee. If you need to get in contact with us, you will have our contact information and we will be available. And as I said earlier, we're excited about this opportunity and looking forward to working with you. Happy to answer any questions that you have about our role.
Does anyone have any questions for Rod? Okay, thank you, Rod. I'd now like to recognize the Board of Regents President, Sherry Bates, who will present the Board of Regents charge to this committee. Sherry?
Thank you, JC. On behalf of the Board of Regents, I want to say thank you to each of you for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedules to commit to this critical task. The hiring of a university president is the most important thing the board does, and your work will be critical in identifying the best possible finalists for the board to consider. Your efforts will be rewarded when we hire the next great leader for Iowa State. There are many rules and processes to follow during a presidential search, many of which will be reviewed today. Board office staff and AGB Search are here to assist throughout the process, so don't hesitate to ask questions. Again, thank you for serving. Thank you in advance for all the work that you will be doing, and we look forward to receiving a great group of finalists from you. Now, let me read the formal charge to you, the search committee. The committee shall assist and advise the Iowa Board of Regents in the selection of the next president of Iowa State University, with the understanding that they represent the larger university in their dealings with candidates. The committee shall recommend an advertisement and institution profile representing the criteria for the position of president of Iowa State University to be approved by the committee. The board directs the committee to consider inclusion of strong demonstrated skills such as innovation, entrepreneurship, fiscal management, and creative problem solving. Appointees to the committee will serve without predetermined bias for or against any prospective candidates nominated, referred, or discovered in search process. In all deliberations, committee members will review all candidates, adhering to Board of Regents policies and state and federal laws, including applicable personnel categories. Committee members shall commit to preserve the confidentiality of the search process and candidate identities. Such confidentiality is essential to the successful outcome of the search and must be maintained with professionalism and diligence at all times throughout the search process. Members of the committee will serve with the understanding that the committee will meet over a period of months and that attendance at scheduled meetings is a top priority, as is reviewing all provided materials. The committee shall work with the advice of the executive search consultants to search, recruit, and screen for appropriate applicants. The committee shall evaluate nominations and applications. The committee will present to the Iowa Board of Regents an unranked list of 3 to 5 candidates who are the most qualified for board selection as the next president of Iowa State University. The committee will work to advance the final 3 to 5 candidates to the board. After the candidates' campus visits have been completed, the committee will meet with the Board of Regents to review its work and provide comments regarding the strengths of each of the finalists they have recommended to the board prior to the board's final candidate interviews. That concludes my charge.
Thank you, Sherry. Next, I'll introduce Board of Regents Counsel Amy Clays, who will provide an overview of Iowa law related to open records and open meetings.
Excellent. Good morning. Go ahead, go to the next slide. So I'm going to provide a general overview of 2 laws that are going to impact and frame the work of the search committee. The Iowa Open Meetings Law, Iowa Code Chapter 21, and the Iowa Open Records Act, Iowa Code Chapter 22. You each received a more in-depth and robust memo. Hope you have an opportunity to read it at your leisure. So I'm just going to hit some of the high points contained in that memo. So the first law is the Iowa Open Meetings Act. Now, this law requires that all of the business of a governmental body be generally conducted in open session and available and accessible to the public. This law applies to the Board of Regents. It also applies to committees formally and directly created by the Board of Regents, such as this presidential search. Slide. So what is a meeting under the Act? A meeting is a gathering, formal or informal, of a majority of the members of the body. So that's 7 for this committee. Anytime there's 7 committee members in a room together, that raises a presumption that there's a meeting. If you are discussing the business of the search committee, so there needs to be deliberation or action and a quorum, so 7. Now, deliberation sounds like it's a very heavy, big term, but it's not. It's really just sharing opinions, thoughts on anything within your policymaking authority. So anything related to search, simply having a discussion or a conversation. Now, most of the meetings will be structured and formalized, like this meeting, but meetings can also, under the law, occur spontaneously. Again, all you need is a quorum and discussing the committee's business. So it's important to be very, very cognizant and cautious of when we have a quorum, that we're not discussing the business of the committee outside of a properly noticed meeting. Next slide, please. So what is required for? We have to provide 24 hours advance public notice. We have to, the date, time, and location. Meetings have to be held at a place that is reasonably accessible to the public. Then we also have to maintain minutes of the meetings that are going to be available to the public. The board office will provide the committee support in all aspects of compliance with this law. So Josh Lehman and I will coordinate providing public notice, providing access, the Zoom links. We archive all of our meetings on our YouTube page. So we will handle all of the day-to-day logistics with managing meetings. Next slide, please. So typically, all of the business of the committee will be conducted in open session, public session. But the committee may go into closed session as provided under the law. Now, closed session can only be held for one of the reasons included in Iowa Code Chapter 21. And when we're in closed session, we can only discuss what the top notice topic is. So if we're in closed session to talk about topic A, we cannot veer and start talking about topic B or C. And I will be in all of the closed sessions to make sure that the committee stays focused on the reason that we're in closed session. We can't vote in closed session. So often what we do is we utilize kind of consensus building process, and then final action of any decision that is made or is targeted in closed session will be taken in open session. So we'll exit closed session and we'll take the final action in open session. Next slide, please. Now, one of the primary reasons that this committee is likely to enter into closed session is to evaluate the professional competency of the applicants for the presidency. And so once we're in closed session again, that's the only topic we can discuss. Closed session can only be entered into upon the request of the applicants. And again, I will work with HB to ensure that all of the applicants are provided an opportunity to request that their candidacy be evaluated in closed session. Next slide, please. Conducting electronic meetings. The law was recently changed where the board is required to offer electronic options for participants of the search committee to participate. So again, we accomplish this utilizing Zoom capabilities and live streaming through our YouTube page. Next slide, please. Now, it's really important, number one, to comply with the law, because obviously it's the law. But if there is a violation of the open meetings or the open records law, there are penalties and fines associated with that. And the state does not indemnify the committee members for these penalties or fines. So if there is a willful or knowing violation, this is the range of fines that the individual committee members may be assessed. So it is very, very critically important that we are mindful of our open meetings obligations and that we're compliant with our open meetings obligations. Next slide, please. So again, just a wrap up, we have to provide public notice of our meetings. Generally, we'll meet in open session unless we have a proper reason to enter into closed session, and then we will maintain meeting minutes that will be publicly available. Next slide. All right, now we're going to talk about Iowa Code Chapter 22, which is the Iowa Open Records Act. Next slide, please. So Iowa Code Chapter 22 provides that all of the records of the search committee are generally considered public records and may be available or accessible to any member of the public unless there's a specific legal reason or exemption to maintain confidentiality. Next slide. So what is a public record? It's really any record originating from any member of the committee related to the committee's business. Be it text message, emails, notes, meeting minutes, applicant materials. Any record in any medium is considered a public record belonging to the search committee, belonging to the Board of Regents. Next slide, please. So generally, all records are available and publicly accessible unless, again, there's a legal exception that applies. The primary legal exception that will be applicable to the search committee's work is contained in Iowa Code Chapter 22.718, and under case law, it stands for the proposition that external applicant materials can be considered confidential records. So all of the candidate materials from external applicants are considered confidential records and are not disposable under the law. Now, there is one caveat to this. It does not apply to internal applicants. So at the conclusion of the search process, Any internal applicants may be publicly released if asked for. But again, that is at the conclusion of the search process, and we will work with AGB so that internal applicants understand that their information, their needs may be disclosed at the conclusion of the process. A couple other reasons for an exception is attorney-client privilege. So all the committee members have privilege with me, right? And so any emails between me and the committee seeking legal advice and counsel are obviously privileged and not disclosable. There's also a draft exception. So our draft, our tentative, our preliminary materials are also not disclosable. Next slide. So again, Iowa law dictates that all records generated in the course of the business belong to the state, right? They're not our individual records, they belong to the government Board of Regents. So we should not destroy, mutilate, or delete them unless you have direction or permission from me or the co-chairs. Next slide, please. So again, at the conclusion of the search process, I will gather all of the materials from you and we will dispose of them properly or retain them in accordance with the Board of Regents records retention schedule. Or I will provide you with clear instruction on how to dispose of any records that we don't need to maintain. Next slide, please. Just some kind of practical considerations when it comes to open records and managing your records. It's good to just kind of segregate your records, all the records related to the search committee's business, segregate your emails, maintain them, hold them. And if you ever have any questions about access to public records or how to manage your records, please do not hesitate to call me or Josh. Any questions about open meetings or open records?
So for internal candidates, that their materials become public.
Yes.
Does that include letters, recommendations written on their behalf?
No. Not, we will not disclose the complete details, but certainly their identities. If there's any confidential personnel information, things like that, yeah, we would not disclose those. But the fact that they were an applicant, that would be publicly known. Go ahead, Jason.
Any other questions for Amy? Okay, thank you, Amy. Next, let me introduce Josh Lehman, Senior Communications Director for the Board of Regents, who will provide an overview of the communications during the search process. Josh?
Morning, everyone. I'm Josh Lehman. I work at the board office in communications. I'll be here to provide staff support throughout the process. Few things just to point out. Either myself, Mark Braun, or the co-chairs will serve as the spokespeople for the committee. So if you get questions either from the media or the public, either email that come your way, please forward them on to me and we will respond with the committee's voice. Anything related to meeting announcements, as we get farther in the process, when we get to semi-finalist interviews or finalist interviews, all that news will come out of the board office. I'll coordinate that with the co-chair. So any news will come out of the board office. There is a presidential search website, which is on Iowa State site. The board office also has one. Those are live. There will be more information as the process moves forward. As has been talked about earlier, all committee meetings will be live streamed. We also archive all of those on the board's YouTube page for archival purposes. They will stay there forever, so you can always go back and see what was said. Couple other things as we move forward. AGB will, and this will come up later in today's agenda as well. AGB will work on a position announcement. So as that is finalized, that will be advertised, and it will be advertised extensively throughout higher education, inside higher ed, numerous publications, both digitally and in print, as the process moves forward. Once that position announcement is final. Confidentiality of candidates has also been mentioned, just to reemphasize that. We will not release names of any candidate, even through the semifinal stage, Traditionally, when we get to the semifinalist stage, we will announce a number of candidates that have reached that stage, but no names. When we reach the finalist stage, the 3 to 5 finalists that this group sends on to the board, those names will be made public 24 hours in advance of their individual campus visit to Iowa State. We won't release all the names at the same time. We will go one at a time once those are scheduled. And again, the announcement of those names and their vita will be made through the board office in conjunction with Iowa State. Does anyone have any questions about communications? Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Josh. Now I'll turn it back over to Amy Claes, who will discuss committee confidentiality.
So maintaining candidate confidentiality is absolutely critical to this process. It's critical for the integrity of the process. The candidates expect it, and it would impact the quality and the depth of the pool if confidentiality were not absolutely assured. And so a couple good rules of thumb. Do not discuss anything that we discuss in closed session outside of closed session. What happens in closed session stays in closed session. Do not discuss candidates outside of closed session, period. Each candidate, again, will be assigned a number. So if there is a need to speak publicly at all about a candidate, it will be by number. I encourage you to refrain from discussing candidates, again, outside of closed session, over email, even by number, because there's too much risk of an errant slip. And again, with open records laws, open records requirements, it's just better to keep things out of email and keep the conversation in closed session. Now, we have a confidentiality resolution that co-chair Gillette will read. I also sent each of you a confidentiality agreement that everyone who is participating in this process will sign, including me. Does anybody have any questions about the confidentiality agreement or just the absolute requirement of confidentiality? Okay, after this meeting, Stephanie will send through DocuSign the confidentiality agreement to each of you. Again, if you have any questions, once you have a chance to read it, just give me a call.
Thank you, Amy. We will now consider a confidentiality resolution for the committee, which is as follows. Resolved, the Iowa State University Presidential Search Committee has been advised that confidentiality during the initial phases of the search for a president of Iowa State University is of critical importance. The search committee believes that potential candidates expect that their names and application information will not be publicly disclosed until such time as is necessary, given the search process established by the search committee. The search committee believes that otherwise qualified candidates may choose not to apply for the position if their names and application materials are made available for public examination without the candidate's permission. Therefore, to the extent permitted by law, the search committee shall maintain candidate confidentiality until the point at which the search process requires that an individual's candidacy be publicly disclosed. To the extent required by law, the search committee shall obtain a candidate's consent prior to publicly disclosing his or her candidacy. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Megan. I'll now recognize Board of Regents Executive Director Mark Braun, who will discuss the search committee's role and its responsibilities. Mark?
So Amy and Josh have covered the confidentiality component of this, but one thing in particular that the committee should be aware of is there may be applicants or people who want to apply who may reach out to you individually. Do not discuss the search. That is AGB's role. Your recommendation to them is you need to reach out to AGB. It is imperative that no candidate gets special preferential treatment from any member of the search committee. AGB handles them. They gather their materials, they talk to them about the position. Should not disclose that you've had a conversation with anyone about it, just send them to AGB. it's as we have all seen in other presidential searches around the country, that causes fraud and peril. This maintains the integrity of the search process. So please, if anybody gets a contact from a potential candidate or someone who has applied and still wants to talk, AGB handles that on our behalf. So that's all I wanted to supplement Amy and Josh's comments.
Any other questions or comments for Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark. Now allow myself, Co-Chair Gillette, and AGB Search to take a few moments review of the proposed timeline, the process, and answer. So, Rod, did I freeze up there for a minute?
You did. You
Okay,
did.
let me say that again.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first, were there any questions for Mark? Okay. Now, allow myself, Co-Chair Gillette, and AGB Search to take a few moments to provide an overview of the proposed timeline, the search process, and answer any questions you may have. Rod, I'll actually turn it to you for this one, since we have the process fairly well defined from your standpoint.
Yeah, happy to do so. If we can put the tentative timeline up on the screen, that would be helpful, so that people can sort of see what we've developed as a timeline for the search. Okay, while we're getting there, it is. Okay, so you can see that today is our first search committee meeting. The charge, President Bates has delivered the charge. Confidentiality has been discussed. I just want to double down on that and talk about how important confidentiality is throughout the search process, and afterward, whatever we have talked about should stay with the search process and never be discussed publicly or privately well into the future. Then we've also, right now, we're going through the review of our timeline, search process and timeline, and then we're going to talk a little bit later in the meeting about the attributes and requirements that will be required for this position. We've scheduled some listening sessions with the help and support of the staff. Those listening sessions will be held in the next few weeks, and we want to launch the search, if we possibly can, by July 23rd. The position will be posted on the university's website. It will be posted on our website. We will have some online advertisements, and it will be placed in the Chronicle of Higher Ed and other publications. It will be communicated broadly to a wide range of people that are either potential nominators or potential candidates. And this is what we will see as the active recruitment process that Janice, Jim, and I will be engaged with. We will use a wide scope of techniques to recruit candidates, from emails to telephone calls to LinkedIn to our database to our network. And not only the networks that we have, but the networks that our colleagues within AGB Search has to identify great candidates for this position. That process will continue throughout the summer. The deadline that we have set tentatively for best consideration, we call it, is September the 19th. This is when we will say to candidates that if they are serious about the position and really want to be considered, we're encouraging them. We will encourage them to have their application submitted by September the 19th. And then you, as a search committee, will begin to have access to the application September the 19th, and you will begin to review those applications in preparation for the October the 6th committee meeting in which you will identify those semifinalists that you would like to interview. And then we'll also at that meeting discuss the questions that you will pose for the semifinalists. The interviews will occur October the 20th. A group, the number will be identified on October the 6th, the number of semifinalist interviews. And then after those interviews, your finalists will be identified. Those finalists will be scheduled for campus visits November the 3rd through the 7th. And the goal of our process is that the Board of Regents will be in a position to make its selection of a president-elect at the board meetings that will occur on November the 11th through the 13th. I apologize for my raspiness. I've been talking too much the last 2 days. I'm about to lose my voice, but I'm going to try to hang in here and get through the balance of the things that I would like to discuss. So this is our timeline. As you see, very, very, very tight. The dates, if are agreeable, we will determine those dates today to get them on your calendar. But Chair Ryswick, I wanted to see if the committee had any questions relative to the timeline that we have put before them.
I think unstable internet connection, so I switched to a phone hotspot. So I hope this is better for everybody. But are there any questions for Rod?
Rod, I have a question. Do you anticipate the semifinalist interviews being in person or via Zoom?
We're thinking they'll be via Zoom. We have done a number of presidential search interviews via Zoom over the last few years, very successfully. However, that will be ultimately the committee's decision. If you'd like for them to be in person, we can certainly work with you to make that happen. But if you'd like for them to be Zoom, we will work very closely to make sure that they are very effective and successful.
And this is Robert. Do we know any more about the listening tour and what is that? And do we are we expected? What's our expectation of us to be involved?
Yeah, so a great question. I apologize for not saying more about that. So the listening sessions that will occur, we will facilitate those. Your two co-chairs will represent you at those listening sessions. Our thought is that if there are fewer members of the search committee present at the listening sessions, we think they'll get the people will be more comfortable to share their truth, if you will. Not that any of you folks are intimidating. I don't see that at all. But we have found that when there are fewer search committee members at those listening sessions, those who are on the docket to share come forth and share much more openly. So both of your co-chairs have been on the communication listing when those are being arranged, and one or both will be at the attendance of those, but we do not anticipate your attendance at those listening sessions. Good question. Other questions? And again, there are no bad questions, folks. The only bad questions are those that are not asked. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rod. As always, if there are questions after the meeting, feel free out and we can get those answered for you. As Rod said, so the next steps, AGB will have a series of listening sessions over the next several weeks that'll involve key stakeholders to get the feedback, which will help shape the leadership profile for the next Iowa State University president. These sessions are very critical and will provide important insights as the position description is developed. And now let me turn it over to my co-chair, Megan Gillette, for the next item on the agenda, which is attributes for the next president. Megan?
Tracy, one of the items that President Bates charged us with earlier is developing a position description for the next ISU president. So I would like to open it up to the committee for them to mention attributes that they would like to consider for inclusion in this position description, when the position for the presidency is formally advertised. So I open it up for discussion from the group.
I have several. I'll start with one, go around, but demonstrating appreciation for university-based research and ability to explain the value of this research to all audience.
Strategic thinker, leader.
Following up on the research piece is the knowing we're a land grant university, and what does that mean? Extension and research.
Understanding of agriculture with extension that fits together. Let's talk about.
Even solidify that, embrace that we're a land grant university.
This one's a little harder, but a credible strategy for maintaining ISU's strengths in the face of reduced operating budgets.
Fundraising.
Relationship builder with all stakeholders.
Being empathetic as well. Empathetic.
Can you explain that a bit more?
There are so many political involvement going on, but being empathetic to all the leaders, stakeholders with the university, you know, the different research going on and the cuts and everything, and the students' perspective as well. With the graduate students being put with the funding cuts, you know, so being empathetic and advocating for the students is really important.
I would add servant leader, particularly with the grant mission that we have, and also collaborator and a strong people leader. So all that wrapped into one.
I build up Kara's point, ability to work across multiple constituencies, government, faculty, staff, students, alumni, donor, business. Seamlessly.
And athletics.
I would add on athletics, an appreciation and understanding of the importance of athletics, the success of the university.
I guess told script, I'll double down on that and say that, you know, it has a certain role in who we are. And, boy, it is a dynamic time change in there. So having someone who can at least understands the constraints. Every institution has unique challenges in that space, and ours are. And maybe to follow on this different theme is just communication, external communication. I think sometimes people lose the plot on who we are and what we do here, and with that other people define and create a narrative about what's happening here at this institution that's really different from what we're doing. So a strong communicator that can help public understand what our goals are and what we're up to here.
I think to Tim's point a little bit too, internal communicator. Iowa State's known for our silos, so breaking that down a little bit so that internally within campus, we work well together, we collaborate well together. And then a slightly different path, really a forward thinker, thinking about work-life balance and how the workforce is changing, our students are changing, our staff and faculty are changing, and what we need to be successful workers is changing.
But just based on 5 minutes, it should be easy. Shouldn't it? That's probably 30 or 40 applications.
The classic catchphrase today is public-private partnerships. And I think that does well for our students and professors who engage with public and private. I think those are key words, phrases.
A friendly amendment to that one is appreciation for entrepreneurship, university research.
That's leaning into existing strengths in both of those areas.
So I have to accept that as like formal.
You can vote it down if you want.
My title, this one is understanding the times. So, you know, understanding the political things and the different headwinds at hand and opportunities, and how would they navigate all that.
Related to that, have mixed feelings about this, but candidates who don't have strongly known, widely known strong political affiliations, things can flip So if we go one way or the other, we could end up with difficult. We just, you're all aware of that, University of Florida. That's your issue.
And from my perspective, I think it's really important a candidate to have experience in higher education, not experience in other discipline, which is again important, but experience or understanding with higher education is really important to enter university. So experience in that sense is more valuable than the other experience with like political environment, position in other areas might not be relevant.
I probably maybe nuance that a little bit. I think there are people without a lot of depth of experience in higher education that are capable of coming in and meeting a lot of the requirements that we just talked about. But I understand there are certainly some, I would say academic challenges, but there's some decisions that need to be made over the next 5 to 10 years that are really important, that are right in the nexus of curriculum and college issues that we need to deal with. And so that is important. I don't think I would go so far as to make that a defined character that higher education experience has to be there. But at least appreciation for those challenges that will be here on campus.
Maybe like someone who has respect, deep and abiding respect and values higher ed, even if they aren't from higher ed.
Well, I think we seem to have time, so we can speak openly about some of this stuff. I think that when hires from people who are not kind of maybe steeped in higher education environments, don't buy into shared governance. It just creates a lot of conflict. So I would just say an appreciation for the role of shared governance in higher education would be that's the one that I would look at. Maybe you don't have to come from that environment, but do you appreciate the way you need to get folks on board, and everybody needs to kind of say.
Another way of thinking about that is in corporate speak, it's preferred and required. So I agree with your point that, I also agree with yours, so preferred, higher ed leadership experience, preferred versus mandatory.
I mean, David Spalding was a classic example of someone who had industry and also higher education experience, and of course, hit it out of the ballpark as our dean of the business school, and
really appreciated shared governance and worked with was really spectacular.
Public-private partnerships, student experience, money raising. Well, I nominate that. No.
I would add land grant mission. Land grant school experience preferred. I think it's really our differentiator. As many times we get into these discussions, what is unique about us? In large part, it's our land grant mission.
Somebody told me a couple of weeks ago that there are 78 land grant universities in this country, and there are 5,000 schools of higher education, or maybe it was 8,000. It's incredible. But to Kara's point, there's a much smaller group that really understand the mission of Iowa State traditionally, not that we have to stay on a traditional path, but it's certainly a lot different than just all these schools.
It defines us.
I think to the land grant and the whole, connecting with all your constituents, the president of Iowa State University needs to be relatable. So they need to go from speaking to a student in poverty coming in first gen all the way up to a multimillionaire businessman in the industry and everything in between, and being able to adjust their approach so that they are relatable, they feel genuine to the person they're speaking with. Because you do need to change your tone and your approach depending on sort of that audience. And this person will interact with that large range of people with experiences.
I'm just gonna pop in here and say, I'm taking notes, but HEB folks are also taking notes on this. Anybody from the Zoom call want to weigh in as well?
One of the most important ones to me is a student-centered leader, making sure that student voices are heard in decision-making processes, but also understanding the student perspective as the university president leads a wide variety of different initiatives across all aspects of the university.
That understanding that the students are why we're here. None of us would be around this table if we didn't have a strong student body from a diverse background and representing all walks of life and understanding their struggles as students.
And that they're relatable to students. Willing to have those donuts in the morning, whatever you want.
HEB folks, did you wanna guide us if we're, I don't know, I'm hoping this is the sort of information we're supposed to be gathering, or do you wanna direct us in a different path?
Sure. Sure. So let me just jump in and say, those are great qualities. This is a wonderful start to walk down the path. Could you talk a little bit about what you see as perhaps some challenges and or opportunities that might await the next president of Iowa State? Let's start with challenges. What are some challenges, things that you'd like for the new president to deal with, you know, the first 3, 6, or 9 months?
Hard to know where to start, isn't it?
Yeah, that's so many things.
Political climate is one. The demographic cliff that we're facing is another big one. State budgets is another one.
Managing resources.
Yep.
There's been a lot of change at the university leadership. I mean, we have a new provost, we have a new VP of Ops and Finance. We've had 2 recently. So I think there's a little apprehension from staff anyway about one more leadership change. So I think that's a concern for folks, is just the stability of leadership right now.
Okay.
And the challenge of athletics, they gotta come up with another 20 million bucks to pay students, so student athletes. Be a challenge.
Yeah, that's a big one. No doubt about it. Every university across the United States that participates in Division I athletics is having that same challenge, by the way. Those are good. Other challenges.
Well, more specifically, in terms of the political situation, is the cuts to the research funding.
Okay. Anything else anyone can think of? Okay, let me flip into opportunities. What are some things that maybe are in the works? Things that a new president could get his or her arms around early on that would make a difference within the first year or 2?
And I was about to say, Rod, is just you had, in our presentation you gave to the board a while back, explain how important this document that we're coming up with right now is, because we're supposed to really keep coming back to this document as we people, right?
Yes.
And so, and maybe we can go through the opportunities first, but my question was going to be for you, what other kind of distinction? It seems like most people, most university groups would get into a circle like this and would come up with a lot of these same things. What have you seen that is different? What differentiates universities to universities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the areas that we've heard a lot about, and I asked Janice to join me in this part of the discussion, but one of those areas, sorry about that. One of those areas that has come up a lot is crisis management. How do you deal with issues and concerns that come up sort of right away? We've seen a lot of that since the pandemic in higher education. So many governing boards and many committees are asking for leaders that have had some experience having to deal with a crisis, some experience with having to deal with transformation, kind of things that come up very suddenly and you have to deal with things. So I'd say crisis management would be one. I'd say that the other piece of that would be, and someone mentioned it earlier, but enrollment management. I think that's a critical issue for many universities across the country, especially public universities that rely on enrollment for revenue and other things. So someone who has some experience, has some knowledge or understanding. They don't even have to have the experience, but they have to understand how to deal with recruitment, retention, and graduation rates from the standpoint that that's critical from a lot of different vantage points. Someone mentioned research cuts, potential research cuts that might come down the pipeline. That's another area in several searches we did this year that has come up as a challenge. How do you replace almost the irreplaceable research dollars that many universities are finding that they have to cut, from their budgets? Is there going to be enough in the private sector for people to draw upon? Is there going to be enough from business and industry to replace that? Are there going to be enough research partners at the state level that can help to replace the research dollars that might have been coming from Washington? So those are 2 or 3 or 4 areas that we've heard a lot about, and I'll ask Janice to share some thoughts that she might have about the same topic.
Good morning, everyone. I really don't have much to add, Rod, but I do need to observe that you've had great stability in your leadership, in the presidential leadership. And that is something that will be very attractive to individuals because that reflects not only individuals who welcomed this kind of strong leadership, but will be willing to support someone new. 6 to 7 years as a president is now a very long tenure. And Dr. Winterstein exhibited that. I also want to say that while there are universities and colleges in the same situation that this important land grant may be in with research dollars and working statewide, even working with your system office, you've had Iowa State has unique characteristics, and it's going to be very attractive to individuals. Every university or college has a personality, and Iowa State has always been upscale and welcoming. So that is also going to be very attractive to candidates and applicants. There was one thing I don't think that I heard clearly from the group in the room, which we were there, but and that is the requirement for degrees. It's made very clear that we don't necessarily need someone directly from higher ed, although that may be a preference, someone who understands higher ed. But should that person hopefully come to the university with a terminal degree?
Yes.
Did we just hear yeses? Was that the amen corner there with yeses?
Yes.
Yeah, there were a few.
What do you typically see as far as how high of degrees do you see as kind of requirements or preferreds?
Yeah, that's a great. We see preferred a lot. I think certainly preferred gives you the opportunity to attract people with a lot of different degrees, from terminal degrees to other types of degrees. But it gives the committee the opportunity to pick and choose who you want based on what is presented. So we see the word preferred being used, and typically it's and again, Janice, I would ask you to join with this, but we see typically preferred terminal degree, but not required. And again, that sends out the message that you would prefer that a candidate have a terminal degree, but that is not required for this position.
And sometimes it is preferred to have a certain number of years in higher ed administration or in Executive
Leadership.
leadership.
Yeah, executive leadership. Yeah. Yeah, the other thing, there were two other things I was going to mention, and Janice made me remember them. One is something that we are finding many institutions are looking for, and that's someone that has experience with not only developing a strategic plan, but implementing a strategic plan. Because especially with all the changes that are occurring in higher education, you know, a 3 to 5 year plan is about as far out as many institutions want to go, given all the changes. And so someone that has some experience either developing and or implementing a strategic plan is another kind of vital quality that folks look for. And it may have been mentioned earlier, and I'll mention it again, but someone that has political acumen. You have to deal with, you know, your state legislature, you have to deal with the governor, you have to deal with folks in Washington. So someone who has some sensitivity and understanding of how do you work with elected folks on both sides of the aisle. So, you know, not necessarily someone that takes a political position, but rather someone who has political acumen from the standpoint of being able to work very effectively with folks that are in elected positions. That's a skill set that many boards and many search committees look for as well.
I'll add to that too, working with the Board of Regents. I mean, that
Yes.
is closer to where, you know, to who they really directly work with. Also wanted to add on to that, an ability to make difficult decisions. And not an ability, but a demonstrated ability. So examples of them making hard decisions or hard changes and follow through with that, not always taking the easy way out or, yeah.
I'd like to amen that one.
Yeah.
Rod, you asked for, what are some opportunities to sell? And one would be that if you look at some of the rankings, Iowa State has been, climbing in our rankings. Whereas other schools are falling in some of those areas. And I think we can sell that, not just in innovation, but in many of the other rankings. Iowa State clearly has been climbing. Now, the AAU exit 3 years ago was something that we were saddened about, but I guess we didn't control that as much as AAU did by the rules they wrote that basically pushed us out. But, you know, that is the AAU disengagement going to be a negative in some candidates' minds?
Yeah, no, let me answer the question and then make a comment about it. I think that the aspiration to raise yourself in the rankings is a wonderful quality attribute to put out there, because you want someone who sees Iowa State at the AAU level and might say, wow, this is a great opportunity for me to come and to work with the faculty, to work with the deans, to work with the staff, students, etc., to help lift us to the level where we might get invited to rejoin the AAU. So I think that's a wonderful quality to put in there, and that's going to attract that caliber of person who sees that as something that he or she would be able to help with. So I don't think it will detract, but I think it will attract candidates if you have it there as an aspiration.
So I think we could also add a market, the national lab. So Department of Energy has 17 national lab, and Iowa State is honored to have the national lab on campus, which is a really good market to, you know, encourage collaboration, research, and opportunities to grow as well. So
Looks like JC has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I had a couple comments I was going to make here back to the terminal degree. And can you guys hear me okay? Just want to make sure.
Yes.
I've had some internet trouble. So
Yes.
back to the terminal degree requirement, we'd mentioned the preferred nature of that. I just wanted to ask the question, you know, casting a wider net can be good, but if you draw 2,000 candidates, I'm just making up big numbers, but, you know, what can we expect for a candidate pool? And does it make sense to say preferred versus something else in terms of narrowing the pool a little bit? Do we want to do it that way? I'm okay with the preferred. I just want to make sure we understand, are we casting too wide a net, too small a net, or just the right size by doing something like that?
I think with preferred, JC, you're going to have a great quality in your pool. You're going to attract, I would say, 50 plus candidates easily. Iowa State is a preferred institution for all the right reasons. Everything that the folks around the table have said this morning, everything that we know and have learned about Iowa State. This is a very attractive opportunity. You have people around the country that wait for these kinds of opportunities. One of the reasons that we tend to say preferred is that not only do you attract folks that we would consider to be your traditional applicants, and those would be people from higher ed, but you may find that there are a few other folks out there that might that you might attract. I always like to use the example of Ted Carter, who's the current president of the Ohio State University. We recruited Ted when the University of Nebraska had a search for president of their system some years ago, and he was a former superintendent of the Naval Academy, but he only had a bachelor's degree. So the fact that they had preferred in their qualities allowed him to become a candidate, and he was the person of choice. And since then, he's been recruited from Nebraska to the Ohio State University. So you never know sometimes what you find out there in terms of the quality of a person, regardless of the degree. So if you have preferred, it allows you to look at folks that may not have that terminal degree, but may have outstanding leadership ability in all of those areas that you're looking for. So clearly, let me be totally honest and say you're going to find a lot of very, very high quality traditional candidates if you say preferred. That's not going to put them off at all. They're going to come and they will be one of the first folks to jump in line.
How many candidates can we expect, do you think, just in general?
You're going to get, in excess of 50. I don't know how many above that, JC, but you're going to get at least 50. And the majority of those are going to be high quality candidates.
Good. I just wanted to make sure we were in an appropriate size net to make this process feasible, because we do have a time that's relatively aggressive. So I think
JC,
I agree with the preferred.
Yeah, and JC, one of the things that I would caution is be careful what you wish for, and that we just did a search recently for another client where they were hoping to get 30 to 40 applications. They got over 100. So the committee was excited about that until they had to read over 100. They got through it. They got through it in good shape, and they're very pleased with the overall quality. But I say all that simply to say, JC, I think that this is a wonderful opportunity. There are people that sit and wait for opportunities like Iowa State to present themselves. We've tried to look out on the market. We're not seeing a lot of other institutions like yourself that are out on the market right now. Now, unfortunately, the two institutions that we do know of that are going to be in the marketplace probably this year will be the University of Florida and the University of Virginia. So those are two institutions that are AAU caliber institutions. They're going to attract candidates, but clearly Iowa State's going to attract a number, I think, of great candidates for this position.
Good. And the last thing I was going to add was I agree with everything else that's been said too, but I would add as an opportunity, we've actually, we have we talk about enrollment cliffs and issues that are elsewhere in the country. We've actually seen increases in enrollment across Iowa, actually, but Iowa State in particular. So I think that's another opportunity there that we're seeing positives in that regard.
Huge plus. That's a huge plus. Anything else? Sometimes our questions don't capture everything that you wanted to say about the qualities, the characteristics, the challenges, the opportunities. Please, if you came to this meeting prepared to offer some input about what you want to see in the next president of Iowa State, this is a time to share it. Again, no input is bad input.
Another opportunity I thought of, and I don't know why I'm the athletics guy today, but SciTown. So SciTown's a public-private partnership with a developer to develop that area between our stadiums into a retail district. So it's a public-private partnership with a developer and a great opportunity. And I think that also rolls into maybe the stuff that Pat mentioned at the beginning, the entrepreneurial side of the university and monetizing all these patents that we're creating and all that kind of things.
Robert,
I love that.
To add to that, I think that's a great point. So that we have numerous private-public partnerships with the university that create great opportunities, but we have the research park that's a part of that, with partnerships with companies like John Deere, Kent Seed. There's all kinds of wonderful partnerships throughout our state. So we have a lot of investment from the private sector.
With that research park and the other opportunity that was shared, you're talking about attracting someone that has an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that's a real plus that would be something else to the earlier question that you asked about, what are some things that we've seen in other searches? That's something that we're seeing, more of, boards and institutions that want presidents or chancellors that have an entrepreneurial spirit, that they can help to generate new revenue streams, because we're looking at, those opportunities coming from state resources, perhaps not increasing as significantly as we might like. If we look at a decrease of research dollars coming out of Washington, a president or a chancellor that will have some ideas about how do we generate new revenue streams is another important piece that we could include as well.
You asked about opportunities, and another opportunity / challenge is artificial intelligence. We're using search now, and if you haven't been using it, it is unbelievable what's possible now. And the new president is going to have both the challenge of making sure that's getting used to streamline operations, research, and the implications for teaching, but also being at a University of Science and Technology, we are very well positioned with the right leader to take advantage of those opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. You folks are doing a great job. Keep them coming. I know there's some other ideas around that table. Keep them coming.
Well, I'd just like to maybe attempt to summarize the question related to the breadth of the net. And I'd like to keep that as broad as possible and say, if we err on the side of receiving more applications than we were expecting, the work of working through those applications is a way better outcome than having too shallow of a pool. And so I would like to keep our net as broad as we're comfortable with.
That's how we see it, and that's what we like, because again, for us, oftentimes you never know where your ad will land. You never know whose desk is going to come across. We will share this very, very broadly all across the world, to be sure. And you never know. You want to take in as many great applicants as you possibly can, and then you as a committee, if you have choices, that's exactly what you'd like to have. And that's what we're going to try to create, is the opportunity for you to have choices. So we see that funnel being this wide versus narrow.
And one of your AGB's, great attributes is that you're made up of people who are former presidents of universities and a lot of high-level people. Explain a little bit how you kind of go out and a lot of people out there. How do you kind of go out and try to recruit people who might not just respond to an ad, but they might respond to your email?
That's a great question. So I didn't say at the outset, and some of you folks may be aware, but I served as president of Ohio University for 13 years. I served as a provost, I served as a dean. And so I've been in academia for 42 years. And one of the great things about that is that people do return my phone calls, because still, a lot of those folks out there are still colleagues and friends. And so when I send them a note and say, love to have a conversation with you, they actually get back to me and we can have that conversation. I know that Jim and Janice, with their many, many years of senior leadership across singular institutions and systems, have that same network. So one of the advantages that we hope we bring to this is that many, many people in higher education that we've either known or have gotten to know in our time in search do return our phone calls. And we think that's a big plus. And we are going to, and by the way, that's one of the things that we do probably more than anything. I talked about earlier using LinkedIn Recruiter Pro, using emails, using the ad, and using the leadership profile. But we spend an awful lot of time on the telephone, because I have found that even in 2025, people still like to be wooed for these positions. I mean, we all live in a tech age where you get a ton of emails, where you see ads, where you see leadership profiles and so forth. But when somebody calls you and says, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you about an opportunity, or let me plant this seed. When you call someone and say you've been nominated, you get their attention. So folks around the table, if there are people around the country that you think are doing a great job and you want to nominate them, feel free to do that, because that's very helpful for us. If we can say to someone that you've been nominated for this opportunity, it means that someone else thinks that they were qualified for it. So we have found that, again, use of the telephone is a huge recruitment tool. And yes, we do have a lot of friends in higher ed, and they do return our phone calls. Anything else? Any other input anyone wants to share on attributes, qualities, opportunities?
Will you compile the things we talked about and we'll be able to take a look? Because then maybe.
Yes.
Things that.
Yes.
Or fill in, or you would help fill in, I guess, you know, key things that we may have missed.
We will fill in. We will draft something. And you will be the committee that will approve that document, by the way. We will work with the staff to come up with a leadership profile. We'll draw from the one that was used most recently, and we'll add obviously some new things. And then you will get that back in draft form that you can add to, you can delete. And we will certainly also, President Bates, share that with the board. So the board has the same opportunity to add to or delete from that profile. And here's the thing. The beauty of this is that we all want to be on the same page. I know that President Bates wants the board to be on the same page as a search committee. We want to be on the same page as the board and the search committee. So once this document goes across the country, all of us are on the same page. We know what we're looking for. We've all agreed that here are the qualities, here are the characteristics that are critical to finding the right person to be the next president of Iowa State. Here are the challenges and opportunities that we think are appropriate. So once we can all agree on that, that really becomes our North Star. This document that we create really becomes our North Star for this search. And we stick to that document, not only through the recruitment phase, but through the discussion phase of the candidates that you want to put forward as your semifinalists and ultimately your finalists. And as we go about doing more listening sessions, we're going to look for the themes. We're going to look for the things that other groups have said, that you've said this morning, that we think are, you know, if we hear something 7, 8, 9, 10 times, that means this is really, really important. Those become the themes or the basis. But all of the other input that you've shared with us, we keep that, because what happens is that when Janice and Jim and I have personal conversations with people, they're going to ask us, well, what did the search committee say? What are they looking for? So we can quote you, not individually, but as a group, and say, well, you know, when we talk with the search committee, here are some things that they said that they felt were important for us to look for in the next president. So your input is critically important, as will be the input of the other groups that we talk with.
Last bits.
I can't.
Okay.
The need for all of these attributes, but a leader who truly has the financial acumen, understand the changes that are on the horizon. Social Security goes upside down in 2032. So to Pat's point, the federal cuts haven't even begun. This is nickels and dimes. When we go upside down 5 or 6 years past 2032, you know, I mean, we're talking about a dramatic change, which will affect the states as they absorb more costs, Medicare, Medicaid. States are going to say, we can't even afford the paltry dollars they give us now at 30%, 29% of our budget comes from the state. So we really need that person that can look beyond the 3 to 5 year plan, in addition to operating a 3 to 5 year plan. So I think it's going to be a rare bird out there that we're going to find that person that can balance the 3 to 5 year plan, but can also look out well beyond that, and then sell that back to all the groups represented here, which are going to be dramatic changes, not incremental. So this person's going to be pretty unique, but has to have an appreciation for the financial changes that lay ahead.
Financial and business acumen.
Yeah.
Like a business.
Yeah, you know, Wendy navigated that very well. I mean, I was amazed how, you know, this Kansas farm girl, you know, that spent 40 years at Iowa State could still see around the corner and didn't sell it. Somebody told me they ran into her at a gas station in Waukon, Iowa recently, and they walked up to her and said, hey, Wendy, I mean, where do you get that out of a university president about as far away from Ames, Iowa as you can get? And they felt comfortable in a Casey's while her and Robert had a gas pump in the car saying, hey, Wendy. I mean, it's just amazing to me. So we need that kind of candidate that can be Wendy and yet still make what I think are coming to maybe the, you know, the fear of many people representing groups around Iowa State, which is dramatic change, which hasn't really. It's
This may be a little corny, but Iowa nice to go along with
yeah.
the Wendy comment. I mean, just that, the highest of integrity and character as well. I mean, they go without saying, but I think that's extremely important.
I think humbleness works with us.
Yes.
It's back to that servant later.
Yeah.
Approachable.
Relations.
Yeah.
Approachable. Approachable.
The Iowa nice sells well, folks. That sells well. Any other points? It's an excellent point that was just made, and all the points to be sure, but this is exactly what we needed. This input is exactly what we needed.
And kind of along with that is that our board policy is that our university presidents are not out there making their political statements, online. So that we have to realize that we might not attract and don't want to attract that person who really wants to, grandstand or make big statements. We want them to be kind of that team player and follows everything that you guys just said about humble servant leader.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was referring to that earlier in terms of that having that political acumen to know, when to speak and when not to speak. And sometimes it's better to not speak than to speak. So all of that is critically important. Yeah. Anything else that you want to share? Okay, well, JC, I'll turn it back to you and Megan, if there's nothing else that folks want to share.
Thank you all. That was the final agenda item of the day. Any last questions?
Oh, Megan, let me offer this, because again, some of you might leave the meeting and get back to your offices or get back home and say, I should have said this, I should have said that. Please send us an email. We would love to have your additional input. There's time, even if it's tomorrow or the next day, and you think of something and you say, geez, I really think I want to share this. Please feel free to do that. And I know that staff will give you our contact information so that you can reach us by email or phone. We'd love to hear from you in that regard.
I'd ask that staff send everybody electronically, so all we have to do is accept contact information, so we don't have to enter for everybody, including, of course, AGB, so we can have that, and as we contact each other for open record violations, but as we contact each other with a question or something, we know who it is when that unknown number comes in.
Okay, then the committee is adjourned.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you. It was great to meet you, Karen. Great to meet you, Robert.